With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today is causing tremors in the force all throughout the world, Rob. Our third topic today comes to us from Natedog. And Natedog writes, "Hey, John and gang, I can't believe it, but it sounds like Bob Iger has stepped down as CEO of Disney. How do you think this will affect Disney going forward? And what can you tell us about the new CEO, Bob Chapek? I know you're a big Bob Iger fan, so what do you think of this change? Thanks, and keep being filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, Rob, you could feel it yesterday. The earth shook, the mountains trembled. The gods took notice. Bob Iger, the most powerful man in all of entertainment, decided to step down from being CEO of Disney. Now, there are a couple things, before we dive into the ramifications of this, there are a couple things to keep in mind here. On the one hand, while we were not expecting an announcement like that yesterday, we knew Bob Iger's time as heading up Disney was coming to a close. He's been talking about this for years, that his mission right now has been to get Disney into a place that it is ready for him to enact succession and to pass on the reins of Disney to somebody else. He's wanted to get a bunch of things in place before he moved on. 2 key things, of course, was the acquisition of Fox and the launching of Disney Plus, which I believe are probably going to be the 2 things that stand most as his legacy. And he wanted to get those things done and in place. So we've known for a long time that he's been looking at stepping down and moving on. We know that his contract's been coming up. We know that he's gotten the things he said that were the most important things for him to get done. And now he's going to move on. And here we are. Now, we weren't expecting it yesterday, but we shouldn't be completely shocked by it at the same time. As far as the new CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, so one Bob is being replaced by another. He seems like a logical choice to take over. This is what Variety writes. Chapek has headed Disney's theme park division since 2015. In 2018, he was up to chairman of parks experiences and products. Before that, Chapek held a range of senior management positions running consumer products, film distribution, and home entertainment at various times. Disney cited Chapek's success in launching Shanghai Disney Resort and Star Wars themed lands in domestic parks as examples of the skill that won him the promotion to CEO. There's a couple things here that really stand out to me, Rob, about what makes this guy the logical choice. Disney, a lot of us forget that Disney is not just a movie studio. Disney is a much bigger entity that goes well beyond just movies. But when you look at this guy, he has worked in customer experiences, in product, he's worked in theme parks, he's worked in entertainment and home entertainment and film distribution. This is a guy who has had his fingers in almost every slice of cake that Disney has. He's got that experience. He's been with the company for nearly 30 years. So he's been with them for a hell of a long time. So he actually becomes, while a lot of people were surprised by the announcement, he actually comes as kind of the logical choice, I think, not to mention he's worked very closely with Bob in the past. Now, another big important thing here, Rob, that people got to keep in mind is this. Bob Iger is still at Disney, and Bob Iger, until the end of 2021, is still the most powerful person at Disney. Bob Iger is still the chairman of the board of Disney. He is still the most powerful guy at Disney, but as being the executive chairman, he's not really going to be dealing in the day-to-day stuff. That's what the CEO runs. So Alan Horn, who heads all of Disney Film, is now going to be reporting to Bob Chapek and not Bob Iger. Bob Iger is going to be working with the board, overall creative vision of Disney and the future of Disney, stuff like that for the next year and a half, almost 2 years. But the day-to-day actual running and being the boss of Disney is now in the hands of Chapek. And Rob, one of the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear about a move like this is that I believe that Kathleen Kennedy's job is in peril. at this. And I know there's probably a lot of you going, whoa, wait, where did that come from? Why did Kathleen Kennedy's name suddenly come up in this? Here's the thing. Despite a lot of BS rumors you guys have heard, Kathleen Kennedy's biggest supporter has been Bob Iger. Bob Iger likes what Kathleen Kennedy does, and he likes what she brings to the table and all this kind of stuff. And for everybody who's whining and moaning, complaining, and even myself sometimes asking the question, with all this, why is Kathleen Kennedy still in that position? There are many answers to it, but the most important one is the boss likes her, and the boss thinks she's good. Despite what I think, despite what you think, the boss thinks she's good. And with Bob Iger leaving that position, now the ultimate say in who is the head of Marvel, who is the head of Star Wars, who is the head of Pixar, that decision now comes down to, first, Alan Horn, but secondly, now Bob Chapek. There's a new guy in town. And Rob, to use a sports analogy, when a new head coach shows up at a team, what's usually the first thing that happens? They fire all the assistant coaches because they want that coach to be able to bring in his own people. The people that he needs to trust, the people that he needs to work with. And I think I'm not saying this is going to happen, but Rob, I won't be surprised if in the next 6 months, two things don't happen. I won't be surprised if, number one, I think Alan Horn retires within the next 6 months, because I think Alan Horn has been pleading to retire for the last 3 or 4 years. Everybody forgets Bob Iger talked Alan Horn out of retirement. They pulled Alan Horn out of retirement and said, we need you to come and save our film division. And Alan Horn came, boom, saved their film division, and look at the massive growth and success that they've had. But he's been basically, when do I get to go back to Tahiti? When can I leave now? Can I get back to my retirement? And I think now with Bob Iger stepping away, I think that now opens the door that Alan Horn can finally get back to his well-earned retirement, having all the success in the world that he's had. But I also think the second thing that we're going to see in the next 6 months, and I have no insider information on this is simply me saying this from a position of speculation. But I believe the second thing we're going to see within the next 6 months is that Kathleen Kennedy steps down as the head of Lucasfilm. I think we're going to see Bob Chapek come in and want to install his own person in there, start putting his own identity on things there. And again, let me be clear here. I have no insider information on that. That is simply my speculation looking at the situation, the moving on of Bob Iger just to playing the role of chief executive over there and letting Chapek take over the reins as CEO. I don't think we're going to see any changes at Marvel, except, Rob, you and I have both talked about in the past that we kind of feel, at least I feel, that once Alan Horn goes back to his well-deserved retirement, I feel like they've been grooming Kevin Feige to leave his position just heading up Marvel to become the head of all films at Disney and taking over Alan Horn's job. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea, but that's kind of what I've been speculating. Anyway, Rob, we could literally talk all day about this because we're talking about a guy moving on here, dude, who under Bob Iger's leadership, 2000, I believe in 6, he acquired Pixar. 2008, he acquired Marvel. He later, for $4 billion, acquired Lucasfilm. He then took over Fox. He established Disney Plus, which I believe are going to be the two main hallmarks of what ultimately define his legacy. He has been remarkable for Disney at this point. But Rob, Bob Iger has stepped down. What are your initial thoughts about the stepping down of Bob Iger from the CEO role, the installation of Chapek, and what ramifications or fallout do you see coming as a result of this change?
Well, first of all, Bob Iger has wanted to leave for a while. And I think you're right. What you just stated, there's no more worlds for him to conquer, as Hans Gruber paraphrased the famous saying. But there's nothing more for him to do. And I think that launching Disney Plus was what he wanted to see happen. And it was much more wildly successful than even they thought. And seeing shows like The Mandalorian work. And then they probably saw that there are other shows like that Jeff Goldblum documentary series has done well. So why not go out on top? And like you said, he's sticking around to the end of his contract, to the end of 2021, and he's still got control of the creative division. So what he's going to do is solidify the direction that everything should be going in, make sure all the trains are running on time, and then he gets to retire triumphantly to whatever he's going to do, whether he goes into a career in politics, whether he's another captain of industry, whether somebody hires him to, I don't know, run a small banana republic. He can do anything that he wants, really. Now, I think replacing him, I think it's Bob Chapek, and I only say that because when I worked in Disney home video, I worked creating special features for them back in the early aughts. He was running the home video division.
Oh,
and he was doing a really great job, and everyone, he was very well liked, and he was very innovative. Disney was at the forefront of Laserdiscs in terms of doing special features. They jumped headfirst into DVD, and they embraced that. And then, of course, they carried that over into Blu-ray. And Chapek also working for the all the theme parks. He really understands holistically, probably better than anyone else on the planet aside from Iger, the whole company. He has a view of how all of their divisions are integrated, how one division feeds into another. And what's happening is with streaming, home video is basically going away. I mean, Disney's having a fire sale on their 4K discs. I'll bet you that there won't be a whole lot of Disney physical media. So they've got Disney Plus, they've got their theme parks, and they've got their motion picture division, and then all the other merchandising. And he's got a really great handle on that. And basically what Bob Iger is doing is he's launching this gigantic ship on its trans, planet voyage. And he's gonna make sure that the ship is crewed correctly, all the positions are taken care of. I wouldn't, if I'll tell you something, if in fact Kathleen Kennedy also decides to leave because she no longer has Bob Iger around to protect her, I'm sure they will both have a hand in picking her successor. That'll be another big thing. And whether they install Kevin Feige in Alan Horn's position, because if you have Alan Horn, Bob Iger, and Kathleen Kennedy leave, those are big shoes to fill. And I think that all three of them will have a big hand in picking their successors and what's going on, so they can make sure that, for the next decade, for the rest of the 2020s and into the 2030s, that Disney is in a really great place. And part of what happens with Disney after they leave is going to be part of their legacy as well. So I think, it's good. You don't want executives to stay longer than their shelf life. And if they're not having a good time, Bob Iger, you read his book, that guy was having a good time running Disney. And if it's time for him to go, it's time for him to go. He goes out on a high note. So he's going to work his ass off for that company until the day he leaves his office. So I think I see it as an exciting thing. I mean, I wouldn't be one of those shareholders that I'm not going to buy Disney stock now, or I think it's going to be fine. I think the studio is going to be fine. And I do find it was kind of a surprise announcement, though. Nobody saw this happening yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was curious. I thought that was curious. I mean,
I think he wanted to do it that way, though. I think Bob probably, in the way Bob does all things, I think he just wanted to do it his way. He knew it was his time, and he was going to announce it whenever he wanted to, and there we go.
And you know what it is? It's like pulling a Band-Aid off a wound, and they have to think about their shareholders. And if it was this long, protracted thing, then people are going to be like, uh-oh, they would dread it. Nope. Bob Iger's like, nope, I'm out. I'm around here till 2021. So it's not like I'm leaving the company. There's no problem. So I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. He did it in the way he wanted to do it, that he thought would cause the least amount of disruption, because it doesn't even last a week in the news cycle. It was a big deal for an afternoon. We're talking about it today, and by tomorrow, it'll be back to thinking about how the coronavirus is affecting their international parks.
And I think you raise a really important point there. This is not if this was an announcement of, okay, in June, Bob Chapek is going to take over as CEO. No. It was, oh, by the way, by the time you're reading this announcement, Bob Chapek is already the CEO. It's done. Right. They didn't draw it out. They didn't stretch it out. They didn't let fear. It's like, oh, look, he's already the new CEO. And the world hasn't fallen apart. And I think that's a really good observation, Rob. The other thing is this. I heard some people say, and it makes sense, say, who would want to be CEO at Disney if Bob Iger is still there and still like the most powerful guy in the company, even though it's not the day-to-day running of things, who would still want to be there? And that's a good question. But Bob Iger has always shown that he lets his people do their jobs. Like, for instance, I love Alan Horn. I think he is just one of the best film executives ever. But I was very, very critical of Alan Horn in the way he handled the James Gunn situation, right? But that was Alan Horn's decision to make. And Bob Iger said, hey, I just support Alan. Whatever Alan wants, that's his job. He doesn't interfere. He sets his goals and direction, and everybody's got to march in order and go towards what he lays out as the direction. But after that, he keeps his hands off and lets them do their thing for the most part. And I think Bob Chapek probably saw that up close and knows that, yeah, I can become CEO, and I know I'm going to be able to be CEO. And the board of directors is going to set the overall direction for the company, but then they're going to let me take it there. They're going to let me do my job. And I think that became an important part. So it is going to be interesting, Rob. I think Bob Iger stepping down is but domino one. It's going to be really interesting over the next few months to see how all the other dominoes fall as a result of him stepping down. It's going to be neat to see. Guys, I know many of you guys are probably going to want to bring this up more in the live questions, so we'll talk more about this once we get to the live questions aspect of this. But for now, what do you think about the stepping down of Bob Iger? What do you think about his legacy at the company? What do you think about this change? And what other changes do you think could be on the horizon as a result of Bob Iger no longer being there? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right,